All right, so we are going to call the meeting of the Board of Public Works to order on January 20th, 2022. Diane, would you please call the roll? And let's see if Director Photo is on the... Yep.
I'm here, Mayor.
Okay. Could you please call the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Moriarty?
Here.
Commissioner Schoeneman?
Here.
Commissioner Lemon?
Here.
Commissioner Shea?
Here.
Mayor Donches?
Here. So everyone is present. First item is a motion. Now, what I normally do is just run through, alternate from person to person on these motions. First item is to approve the agenda, but there's one item that we need to delete because the information is not complete. And that is item C under engineering, the drain layers license for the company that's mentioned there.
Correct.
So is there a motion to, I believe that's correct, right?
Yes, it is, Mayor.
So can we have a motion to approve the agenda with the deletion of item C under engineering?
I move to approve the agenda
With that?
with the changes.
All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the item 2 or item 3, the minutes. Commissioner Schoeneman.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of December 16, 2021.
Any discussion? Correction? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Motion passes. Next, public comment. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the board? Apparently not. All right, Solid Waste Department. Item A, Commissioner Lemon.
Motion to approve change order number 1 to the contract with ChemServe Environmental Analysis Analysts of Milford, New Hampshire for water quality testing services at Nashua landfill sites for the Solid Waste Department in the amount of $40,795. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste, Fund Solid Waste, Account Classification 53 Professional and Technical Services.
Thank you. Mr. LaFleur.
Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent of Solid Waste. We have a contract with ChemServe Analysis for 3 years. This change order is due to some requirements that DES is making us do some additional testing at the landfills. We didn't anticipate these changes. It's just something that DES added on to us. We did a calculation and tried to figure out as close as possible to get us through the rest of this year. So that's where this number comes up with. Again, we went out to bid, for the 3-year contract. They were our lowest bidder. They didn't change any of the pricing that they're doing, so it's just normal testing. It's just additional testing.
Any questions, comments from anyone? Commissioner Schoeneman.
It says that it's possible after February, the monthly testing might be revised to quarterly. Do you know when you're going to know if that'll be changed?
That'll be depending if DES gives us the approval to do the changes to eliminate some of the testing. We don't have a definite answer. It's just we're going to petition the state to say, listen, we don't need to do this additional testing. We have enough background testing done. So.
Okay, so it could be at any time, or
It could be February, or it could be carried out through June. We're just depending on if DES will give us the approval to lessen the amount of testing that needs to be done.
Okay. And if it does happen that you're revised down to quarterly sampling instead of monthly,
Yes.
what is the plan for the excess funding? Surely there'll be excess funding if you're not sampling every month.
The PO would just be stopped and it would go back into the account that the money came from.
Okay. All right.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is B, Commissioner Shea.
The motion is to make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen to increase the charge of construction and demolition from $90 a ton to $300 a ton.
Now, we have several people who are prepared to address this, and we'll go to Mr. LaFleur in a second. But the overview is we're getting tons and tons of stuff from out of town. And many examples of people bringing in stuff from out of town have been discovered. There's an economic incentive to try to bring it here because the prices here are much lower than elsewhere. And the type of investigation is done that when someone brings in the demolition, they ask, well, where did you get this? So this would have to come from a Nashua location. Oh, I got it at, 40 Franklin Street. They go to 40 Franklin Street. Did you have a project done here? No. That happens over and over and over again. You're going to hear, there's a report that's in here, and I assume someone's going to speak to it, that's going to show that the amount of demolition tonnage that's coming in is gone up dramatically, and we think it's because of this price. So we have to create a disincentive for people to, and demolition stuff is not good for the landfill to begin with, and it's filling up the landfill. So I'll let Mr. LaFleur speak in more detail.
Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent, Solid Waste. As the mayor said, that the C&D is, it takes up actually 20% more airspace than MSW, which is the track, when we compact it. So it is definitely an incentive to keep it out of the landfill as much as possible to save airspace for the citizens of Nashua. There's there's at least 2 areas or companies within 50 miles of the city of Nashua that do recycle C&D, and they're at $185 a ton right now. So we're thinking if we bring it up to the $300 a ton, that'll definitely discourage people to bring it here and bring it elsewhere where it's a little bit cheaper for them to do it. And as the mayor said, that we've been checking out residents. We have a lot of commercial contractors that come in and just give a bogus address. I have one of my foremen here today that's personally went out and checked with residents. The other foreman couldn't make it. They personally go to these houses that they say, hey, this is where the job was done. They knock on the door and they're like, we have no clue what you're talking about. Kind of makes us look foolish, but we're doing our due diligence trying to keep this stuff out of our landfill. I have the authority to pull a permit if I know that something's coming from outside of Nashua, and up to date, we've pulled 39 permits. And over half of those were for construction and demolition. They're small Joe contractors coming in and bringing in demo. And most of these contractors, when we do pull the permit from them, they tell me, well, it was great while it lasted. So that just tells me that they've been bringing them in for years, and we're finally getting around to doing our diligence trying to keep this stuff out of the landfill. So that's why we're requesting this. This would actually think I have to be an ordinance change. We have to bring it to you guys to recommend it to the Board of Aldermen, and then I have to go through the process of getting that approved through the Aldermen. And I would expect eventually here we'll be going for some other items, to help out with the city of stopping stuff coming into the landfill. But right now we're going to start with construction and demolition. Again, I brought my foreman in if you guys have any questions about some of the residents that they've been to and looked at.
And our foreman has done a lot of these investigations. Well, no, we don't have any project like that. We don't know. Again, we don't know what you're talking about. Do you have anything you want to add, Ms. Photo?
No, I just, Kevin probably could add. Kevin Narrow, our solid waste foreman, is present, so he may want to add something. Because it's been incredibly frustrating for the foreman to find this over and over again. But there are a number of things that I think also factor into this. One is there just are no landfills left in New England, very few. And Massachusetts has put a ban on construction and demolition debris in landfills. We're hoping that New Hampshire follows suit, but they have not yet. I think partially because there aren't a lot of landfills left. But there are two facilities, as Jeff said, one on the seacoast, one in Salem. So there certainly are other opportunities and more suitable facilities to bring this material to where it can be processed and not taking up space in the landfill. And we're very concerned that if this trend continues, that we may, we're going to fill the landfill much more quickly than anticipated and not have the space for our residents and the trash, which is really what it was designed for.
Now, Mr. Narrow, do you want to add anything? Mr. Narrow is a Nashua
Hello,
resident,
everybody.
by the
Yeah,
way.
Kevin Narrow, solid waste foreman over at the landfill. As Jeff was saying, we have throughout the years, believe it or not, when loads come in, commercial loads come in, we dig through the loads, look at addresses and, mail to see if, just to make sure that the material is coming from the city of Nashua. And all these commercial haulers know that anything they bring in when they're sold the permit, that they know whatever comes in has to be generated from the city of Nashua. So a few months back, Jeff Parker and I, Jeff is the other foreman at the landfill, decided, well, we can't, when a load of demo comes in, somebody brings in a load of roofing, you can't really get an address on it. So the scale house is always, when the load comes in, they've always, gotten an address. So the commercial company has to say where it's coming from. So we took it upon ourselves to say, okay, well, let's start checking on some of these demo loads. I mean, the roofers are easy. They give you an address and you go and the roof's got moss on it. It's a no-brainer. It's not coming from the city of Nashua. So that kind of tripped up, and one thing it came to another, and it just started snowballing, where Jeff Parker and I started, knocking on doors. And as the mayor referred to, I went to this one house over off of Pine Hill Ave, and it was a company that had done kitchens. And I knocked on the door, and the gentleman came to the door, and I asked him, and he looked at me like I had two heads, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So they've obviously been lying to us, and like Jeff said, I think it was 39 that permits that we've suspended. So I think we've just hit the tip of the iceberg, and I think it's a really good thing to do to keep on it, because it's a landfill. People put the trash out, and it disappears, but they don't realize that landfill is very important to this city, and when it's gone, we're really going to pay. So, yeah. So hopefully, this goes through, and we can kind of curb that, and we're going to keep doing our due diligence to keep as much as we can out of it. We can't catch everything, but we do the best that we can. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Patrician.
Hi, Andy Patrician, the Assistant Director of Public Works. I'm going to age myself a little bit here. I was actually working in the landfill as an equipment operator back in 1995. I worked in the old landfill that is unlined, and I was actually the operator that started putting trash in the new landfill, which was Phase 1, in June of 2003. Phase 1 and Phase 2, lasted us till about, 2018-ish, so, 18, 19, 20 years out of those. We opened Phase 3, and just in a couple of years, it's filled up like I've never seen it before. I've been in that landfill a long time. The stuff that used to come into that land, we never took in that amount of material because there was other outlets around us that were a lot cheaper. Mm-hmm. And now that all these outlets have closed down and the prices are up, we're just getting, I just can't believe how fast Phase 3 has been filling compared to Phase 1 and 2, which, I personally worked in. So I just wanted to let you know, it's just mind-boggling. It's the amount of trash the amount of C&D that's coming into that landfill right now is just mind-boggling. So I just wanted to give you a little history of that.
All right, so I think you've heard from a group of people. All are available for questions or whatever. So, commissioners, you have questions, comments on this? Commissioner Shea.
What is the cost of the base permit?
For commercial permits is $50.
$50. And is there any sort of fine schedule for people that are found to be skirting this and bringing stuff in?
That's one of the things that the director and I have been looking at, very diligently looking at that. The fine schedule is only from like 40 years ago, 50 years ago in the ordinances. So we're trying to figure out what we need to do and, you know, how to curb it. The one good thing is it does say that the director or the superintendent has the right to pull any permit if there's any issues. And I've taken that upon myself to start doing that with Lisa's, with the director's blessing to do that, and the mayor's. I can tell you one thing though, is when I do pull a permit, I get some choice words. I get a lot of yelling, screaming, you can't do that, and you know, unfortunately we can. This is the city of Nashua, and we're looking out for the residents of Nashua and our airspace.
Yeah, so it seems the risk-reward proposition there, you know, you could dump 2 tons, and if you lose a $50 permit, you're saving money still coming to Nashua. And I'm generally in favor of this. I like the idea that it is more expensive to dispose of it in the landfill as opposed to recycling facilities. But I would love to see, you know, additional attention to the fine schedule issue, because the risk-reward proposition just, that's, I get why people are doing it.
Absolutely. I can say that, you know, I would rather stop it from coming in 100% instead of finding someone, because it's only cash. They'll pass that on to their, to their customers. So, I mean, for me, getting it out of the landfill 100% is the best thing for us instead of a fine schedule. But we would definitely look into something like that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
First of all, I think this is a great idea. I think for those who are not doing things by the book, I think it's really going to be a disincentive. It's unfortunate that the people who are legitimate and really need a place to dispose of their the C&D. It's unfortunate for them, but I think it will have the effect that you're looking for. I was a little curious. Is it possible to recycle? You said the other facilities recycle some of the C&D. Is it possible for us to do that, or is it too cost prohibitive to go through all that?
We can do that, and that's another thing that I've spoken to the director about. We're going to start, I'm going to go out to RFP and see how much we can ship our demo for. We did it for a while, you know, with a little bit, like back in the FY18 or 17, we did some of it. It was very expensive, and the budgeting in our department, it wasn't cost effective to send it out because we could landfill it cheaper. But now that we're in a time constraint and we're looking at, you know, airspace being a major problem, we are going to go out to RFP. We're going to see if these, you know, contractors that do recycle it will take it, and, you know, the residents or whoever does decide to bring it to our landfill, hopefully we can send it out. You know, that'll be a big budget increase in my department. I mean, if I were to ship out the 15,000 tons right here, you could be looking at a $1.8, $1.9 million increase in my budget just to ship demo out. Hopefully the monies that we're going to charge, hopefully if we get this approved, will help offset that. You know, it'll all hopefully come out in the end.
I was just gonna, if I could add something to that. The other thing too, commissioners, that is a problem is the gypsum board that is often in construction and demolition debris. When that gets into the landfill, it decomposes and creates significant odors. So that's another reason to pick it out. We do, to keep it out of the landfill, we do try to pick it out, but it's nearly impossible to get all of it. So that's a huge source of odors for us as well.
I just wanted to ask what what kind of things from C&D, especially from demolition, can be recycled? What can you reuse?
The wood that's recycled, which is most of the C&D, they chip it up and they'll make particle board, they'll make press board. The companies that, that take it, they have all these vendors that'll take all the different commodities and do certain stuff with it. I'm not very fluent on what they do with it, but so long as it's out of our landfill.
Jeff, I think Commissioner Shoneman is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Shoneman is asking, is there the possibility that we could recycle any of it?
Oh,
Is that-
personally here at our landfill, we don't have the means to do it. I can ship it out to a company. I don't think that, I mean, we could look at something. I'm not 100% sure. But the time process to do something like that would be very difficult. I mean, I'd have to pick out every piece of wood with an excavator or hand do it. These facilities have conveyor belts that they do it. That's their job.
And it can be complicated too, because you're dealing with lead-based paint and other things that could be toxic and harmful. So it's not really something that we would want, it's not a business we would want to get into.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lemon?
Do you think $300 a ton is enough?
I mean, based on what we saw for the $185 a ton at these facilities, I mean, it's almost double what we were going for. I mean, we shot high that way. I'm up for whatever number that you guys want to throw out there. I mean, again, I'd be in favor to get it all out of the landfill, send it somewhere else. But we thought $300 was fair.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you thought that was a big enough fee to really make people say, okay, I got to come up with some other solution to deal with my construction and demolition waste.
Yeah, I agree. The unfortunate thing is, no matter what number we throw at it, I think the contractors are going to throw the number back on the residents.
Yeah.
The person that's going to be doing the job. So,
Yeah.
we could set it at $1,000 a ton. It's just going to be pushed back at them. They're not going to care.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yeah, Superintendent, the motion isn't clear whether this will only affect commercially permitted contractors, or is this across the board affects everybody equally? Everybody's treated equally?
All demo that comes in, yeah.
Okay.
The price is the same for commercial and residential at the landfill right now. The difference with commercial is they pay the $50 permit, and they do pay a half-ton minimum. So they're paying a minimum of $45, whether they bring in two boards or, a ton, whatever, they're paying the 4.5 cents a ton right now, or a pound, I'm sorry. Just like our residents will pay the 4.5 cents a pound, but they don't get charged the minimums. So they could come in with 6 or 8 boards and get charged $3, whereas a commercial contractor would get charged $45 for the same 3 or 4 boards.
Go ahead.
Another question I had was, because I've never been through this process on the scale with a truck, so I don't know how the process works. Does the driver have to sign off verifying that the demolition comes from a certain location, or no?
They come on our scale. Our scale operator takes down their permit number, makes sure that the permit lines up with the truck or the vehicle. And then when they ask the resident where the load came from, they type it in on the ticket, so we have a physical ticket that tells us that driver told us this is where it came from. And again, that's when the scale operator will call out to the foreman and say, hey, this is the resident it went out to. The foreman will try to get out there and check it and see, if the work was done there. And then when they're scaling out, they're getting a copy of that ticket with the address on it, and they're signing their name to it saying that this is all correct. So they're, if they're lying, their signature's on the slip saying that, yes, it did come from there. Well, no, it didn't, sir.
Great. I just want to make sure it's somewhere along the line we get a signature that they're verifying it.
Yep, they verified it because it's in the comments. Every one of our commercial contractors that come in or resident, they have to sign off on it when they pay any amount to the landfill.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, the motion is to make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen to increase to $300 a ton. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one, so the motion passes. Thank you very much. And thank you, Kevin. So we are going on to the engineering department. I'm sure you all know Dan Hudson, city engineer. Motion A, or item A, Commissioner Moriarty.
The motion is to approve change order number 1 to the contract, oh, I'm sorry. The motion is to approve the sewer service permits and fees as submitted.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Schoeneman.
I move to approve the award of a contract for interpretive historic signs to Preservation Company of Kensington, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $35,731. Funding will be through Department 160, Admin Engineering, Fund Bond, Activity Broad Street Parkway.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan Hudson, City Engineer. This is one of the closeout efforts that we need to complete on the Broad Street Parkway project, now named Veterans Memorial Parkway. The staff memo here explains it fairly well, but the project was funded with federal funds, and one of the requirements is to mitigate impacts to historic resources. So the project impacted a couple properties, and we're required to mitigate for that. What this contract does is work with a consultant who's an expert in that type of work to develop the signs and install the signs. And with that, we will have fulfilled our environmental historic resource requirements. So the total cost is about $35,000 or $35,700. $20,000 of that is for actual construction of the signs, and then the remainder is the consultant's efforts to help coordinate that effort and do the research required to develop the signs. So happy to entertain any questions.
Anyone? Commissioner Schoeneman.
Can you explain exactly what historic resources were needing to be preserved and what the signs are going to be, what they're going to look like, what they're going to entail?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the specific impacts, one was demolition of the Charles Gordon House at 40 Pine Street. That was a historic resource. There'll be an interpretive sign speaking to or outlining the French Village Historic District. The signs, you may have seen them around. They're a fairly large sign. They'll have photos and descriptive text kind of describing the history of that historic district and things to that nature. The second impact that we're mitigating for was for demolition of a mill-yard waste house. There'll be an interpretive sign addressing the canal and the surrounding buildings in that area, one of which was this waste house, and there was also a storehouse. So, these signs tell the history of an area. We had to demo historic buildings and structures, and for that, we've agreed to develop these signs for public, mainly a public education effort, helping people understand what the histories of the area is.
Anything else? Anybody? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Item C, we have deleted. Item D is informational. Street opening permits. So let's go on to wastewater.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I have a question about the street opening permit.
Please proceed then.
Can Mr. Hudson explain what happened at 7 to 7.5 Harvard Street? Is it Because it's on the wastewater, or the sewer permit list as a commercial replacement. Was it in fact an emergency, or was it just a repair?
Sure, so there was an issue with that sewer service, and I can't speak to all the specifics of it, but what typically happens is we'll get a call, there's a sewer backup, and the reasoning usually is there's a pipe that's collapsed. I mean, if it's just a maintenance, clean the pipe, then they do that, and that's solved, or sometimes there's roots in the service. Those are maintenance issues. We're not requiring digging of the street for those, but this is the sewer service from that property, which they own, all property owners own their service all the way from their house to the main. That a portion of that service in the roadway needs to be dug up and fixed. This being a commercial replacement, I mean, that's just indicating that this is a commercial property. You know, commercial entities, if it's a 4-unit, then that's a commercial type of entity. It's a rental housing. Those type of facilities are responsible for doing all the work. So this was work that had to be done. We had to restore sewer service. That's why it's an emergency, or we had to allow them to restore sewer service. But they did all that work and restored the service to make it function. And unfortunately, it's in a road that was paved recently, and that's, you know, it was paved in 2020, and that's why we report it here, is just making the board aware of these situations where we've had to dig into new pavement so everybody understands why.
So it was enough of an emergency that they didn't need to bring a hardship request to us?
Right. We consider them emergencies because we can't afford to delay restoring their sewer service. You know, just we don't want to make somebody wait to restore the sewer service for a month to make a board meeting where we can
Obviously, that would be a
vote on it.
problem.
Yeah, so those situations are considered emergencies, and we get them resolved as quickly as possible.
Okay. And they had all the work done themselves?
Yeah, I hope I'm not misspeaking, but I believe that is the case here because it's a commercial entity, so we wouldn't bear any of the burden of that replacement.
Yeah. It says that they hired a private contractor to do the repair.
Yes, Chris Contracting does a lot of work in town on these type of situations.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Now on to wastewater. Is Mr. Boucher here, or, well, we really don't have much there, but the first is item A, Commissioner Lemon.
So we're doing number 7, wastewater? Or
Yeah, the motion to approve the user
Yeah.
warrants.
I motion to approve the user warrants as presented.
Any discussions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we're on to administration. And I believe Ms. Photo is here on this. Item A, Commissioner Shea.
Item A is to approve the proposed 2022 regular meeting dates of the Board of Public Works.
Discussion?
So there's, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's no time listed. I see that there's dates. Is there any feeling on the time among other commissioners?
What is your, do you have a,
So for me, earlier in the day would work better. I know that the meetings have for some time now been held at about 4 or 5 o'clock, and I can certainly work around that. But if it doesn't impact folks, then prior to like a 1 p.m. start or prior would be ideal.
well, maybe we should discuss it. So there has been the issue raised in the past that late afternoon is better because for at least people who work 9 to 5, it's a little easier for them. And so members of the public who may have regular daytime jobs can attend. But do other commissioners have thoughts about this? Commissioner Schoeneman.
For me personally, 4 o'clock is fabulous, but it's not about me. It's about, as you said, people being able to watch the meetings or participate in the meetings in person or virtually, and doing that at a time later in the evening is probably works a lot better. That's why it was moved to that time. There was a lot of discussion on this previous boards, that the earlier we make it, if we make it before 5 o'clock, it really cuts out the ability of many people to make it, to participate, people not on the board. So I think that for the sake of that, we're probably better off keeping it at 5:30 as it has been. Yeah, it messes up our dinner time, it messes up kids' bedtime, but you know what? It's better, I think, for the business that we're doing to keep it a little bit later.
So I don't think we realistically can move it earlier.
Would later be an option?
Would what?
Later, say 7:30.
It's up to the board. We could, I mean, that means.
Well, and I know that would not be good for city employees, so actually I'd just scrap that question altogether.
All right, well, what's before us now is, of course, the dates. And any other discussion on the dates?
I feel like.
All those in favor of the date as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We now have item B, the vice chair. Commissioner Moriarty, who is the most senior member, would be willing and able to serve as vice chair. I would like to nominate him.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would accept that.
And unless anyone else has any other nominations, I guess I'll open it to that. Does anyone want to nominate anyone else? If not, all those in favor of approving Commissioner Moriarty as the vice chair of the board, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is the appointment of the BPW Pension Board. He has indicated an interest in being in this position. What this position does is attends periodic meetings of the pension board to discuss the pension business. It meets quarterly. I'm not even sure. How monthly?
Yes.
Monthly. If no one has an objection, I guess it's my appointment. So I'm proposing to appoint Commissioner Shea, and I will do that. So I appoint Commissioner Shea. We do not have a volunteer yet for the appointment to the Strategic Planning Committee. Now, the Strategic Planning Committee is a committee that is created by an ordinance. It includes representatives of the Board of Aldermen, of various departments. It meets very infrequently, and the idea is to kind of talk about the overall direction of the city. There would be, I mean, I forget exactly who's on it, but the chair of the Aldermanic Planning Committee, I think the chair of the Infrastructure Committee, I think probably the Community Development Director, people like that serve on this committee. And I think the chair of it is the chair of the Aldermanic Planning Committee. who is now Melbourne Moran. Would either of our other two commissioners want to serve on the?
I think it'd be
Now,
interesting.
Although Commissioner Shoneman has,
She has seniority, yeah.
you want to be on it, or?
I respectfully decline that honor. Thank you.
All right, so we'll appoint Commissioner Lemon to that committee. You'll be notified if and when the committee meets by those who run that. All right, informational, the director's report. Commissioner, Ms. Photo.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, the first slide is our contractor, Green Mountain, is continuing to inspect sewers using closed-circuit television technology. The videos are reviewed, and if necessary, deteriorating sewers are recommended for rehabilitation, such as lining, which creates a new pipe within the old pipe. Shown in the photo on the left is a 1922 12-inch clay pipe on Ingalls Street with cracking and offset joints. On the right is the same pipe post-lining. So you can see this is a very, very effective technology, and it's very cost-effective as well. As part of the 2021 Sewer Rehabilitation Program, SUR West installed a new manhole on Luke Street on December 7th. This again is some sewer rehabilitation. We had identified a collapsing 12-inch clay pipe on Pike Street and an 18-inch clay pipe in a parking lot near Daniel Webster Highway. Both will be replaced as part of the 2022 Sewer Rehabilitation Project to be bid early this year. Our paving, our 2022 paving program, it's already underway. We have developed and advertised for bids, which includes about 14 miles of paving on 65 streets throughout the city. Bids will be received and evaluated in early February, and it's anticipated that a paving contract will hopefully be brought to you for approval in February. This next slide, so some of you may recall that we had a 10-year paving plan. We asked the Board of Aldermen to fund 5 years of that. We do need to go back with the next 5 years, and again, we anticipate having a presentation for you at our February meeting to go over where we've been with our paving program in the last 5 years and what's left to do. So we anticipate that we'll need another $7.5 million for another 5 years. This is year 6. Right now, we had money left over, and so we're sort of finishing that up with this year's paving project. So the second half of the program would start next year. But again, there's more to come on that, hopefully at our next meeting. Construction right now is underway on private High Street Flats development located between High and School Streets. This photo is a water main connection being installed by Accurate Construction, which was done on December 22nd. And our engineering inspectors provided oversight of the work because it was completed in the right-of-way. We had an emergency, Commissioner Shoneman was asking about this, to replace the sewer service at 7.5 Harvard Street, which was completed by Crisp Contracting on December 29th. Our ice rinks are finally open. The weather has finally cooperated for us to do that. We have pictured on the left is Roby Park. On the right, no, excuse me, on the left, I'm looking at the pictures here. That's Sergeant's Ave on the left. Roby Park is on the right. And the park near Fairgrounds Middle School is in the center picture. So all 3 ice rinks are now open, and hopefully the weather will hold and we'll be able to keep them open. This is these are the crews plowing during a January 7th storm. And this is just the crews getting ready to preparing for treatment of the roads using brine, sand, and salt. We are starting to clear the area for our disc golf park, which we're very excited about. There's a lot of enthusiasm throughout the community. We would like to set up a time to have the commissioners walk the area so we can show you. So more to come on that. We're hoping to do something within the next couple of weeks. So more information will be forthcoming on that. This is a picture of an emergency sewer repair on Fairview Avenue. We are very sorry to see our environmental engineer, Kerry Converse, he has retired. He's been planning this for quite some time, and he will be moving to sunny Florida. So he's very excited about that, but we'll really miss him. He did a great job. We want to remind all residents to please make sure that their trash barrels and recycling bins are clear of snow. Please don't allow your recycling bins or your trash bins to be buried in snow or stuck in snow. Our automated trucks just can't get to them that way. They need to be dug out. We received our new front loader at the landfill. The Forest Hills landfill will be closed on Monday, February 21st for President's Day. So curbside pickup for all routes will be delayed one day during that week. And that's it. Any questions?
All right. Before we go to the questions, I wanted to point out that our liaison from the Board of Aldermen, Alderman Mike O'Brien, arrived during the director's report. I can tell from his garb that he probably just came from a legislative session in Concord. You just came from Concord.
Just came from Concord. I just got sprung.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. So any questions, comments on the director's report? All right. I don't see anyone. Our next item is commissioners' comments. Do any commissioners have comments? I guess my comment is to welcome our two new commissioners. We're glad to have you, and hope you look forward to 4 years serving the city of Nashua.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Yeah, Mayor, I came across this article which I shared with Director Foto. It's called Trees of Peace. I don't know if you've heard of this, but you can certify your city to receive seeds from the Hiroshima atomic bomb survivor trees. And for a small fee, which I don't know what it is, and a certification process, you receive the trees to the city as a sign of peace. So I went on the site, and there are no New Hampshire towns who have been certified yet, but there are several Massachusetts towns. So I just thought, it may be something to, if it's a reasonable fee, something that we could look into.
Yes, definitely. So, Ms. Fodor, you're on still.
I'm here.
Did you hear that?
Yes, we are looking into that. I'm hoping to wait and get hopefully a new park and rec superintendent before we participate. But yes, that's definitely something that we'll look into doing. This sounds like a great idea.
All right, well, thank you for bringing that to us. Any other comments, questions? All right, personnel. Item A, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to accept the resignation of Alicia Fogel, groundsman 1, effective January 7th, 2021, 22, I guess it should be.
Should be 22, yes.
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And I believe someone has a motion pertaining to the non-public session.
Yes, I do, Mayor. I move by roll call that the board go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A3, Roman numeral 2B, the hiring of any person as a public employee.
Could you, Diane, please call the roll?
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Commissioner Lemon?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes, the motion passes, and we will enter non-public session.
Are you up? Okay, where's that?
All right, great. So the Board of Public Works is back into public session now. And a motion to adjourn is in order. Commissioner Moriarty.
I move by roll call to seal the minutes of the Board of Public Works Personnel Non-Public Meeting of January 20th, 2022, until such time as the majority of the board votes that the purpose of the confidentiality would no longer be served.
All right, discussion? Diane, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Commissioner Lemon?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes, motion passes. All right, now a motion to adjourn is in order. Commissioner Shea.
I motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion passes, and the meeting of the Board of Public Works is adjourned at 5:01 PM.